Hey, what's up, people? Duncan here, running as Oregon's next governor. I want to take a second to talk about fixing the city of Portland. Alright, step number one, we have to unite every Patriot group, every GOP Republican group, every MAGA group, every Trump group. We have to unite every Flush Kate Down group, every Pushback group, Redeem Oregon group. We have to unite all of these groups together. The State of Jefferson group, every one of these groups have to get together because we have one common interest, and that is to take Portland back. And that's a simple fact. In order to get anything done in this state, we, as conservative Americans, as conservative Oregon citizens, have to make our voices heard inside that city. So you're not going to do it sporadically with one group here and one group there. It's going to take a massive coordinated effort. So there's your first problem. So now, with that being step one, step number two is campaigning inside and outside the city of Portland. Okay, so when you go to campaigning inside the city of Portland, you got to talk about certain talking points. Okay, number one, cleaning up the streets. So suddenly you have to clean up the streets with swift but stern legislation, meaning no camping, no loitering, and inside the city metro Portland area. Okay, that's your first number one thing is you need to make rules that would eliminate the camping on inside the streets of Portland within the city area. Okay, that's your first step. Push that stuff back outside of the metro area. Next, increase penalties for loitering, littering, for panhandling, trespassing, and any other vagrant penalties you can pick. Increase those fines. Make them pay more for walking around loitering, for being, well, doing nothing except causing problems. So now you're pushing that homeless community farther outside of the Portland metro area. That's the big key. Next, you can designate areas for them outside of the Portland metro area. You can put them in other little suburbs, and you can create tent towns where they're not a complete bleak on the citizens' eyes. Okay, there's no reason why we should be looking at a national spectrum where people from Fox and CNN and every other most known news source in the country is talking about a vast homeless population inside the city of Portland. That's ridiculous. So, right out of the bat, you got to start pushing that back. Next is you got to create new jobs. And not just jobs like Burger King and McDonald's. You got to create new jobs that these individuals are going to want to take part of. Jobs such as the 100% industrialization of hemp and marijuana. You're talking clothing lines, food industries. You're talking anything and everything that could be made from that plant and turned into a business, an industry, or a job. Okay, more and more of these individuals would therefore choose to go to work doing a job that they might enjoy doing. Next, in that same regard, you have to get more restrictions on welfare for people who are 18 to 35 years old and have literally become career welfare recipients. Okay, what I mean is, at some point, we have to create restrictions that make it harder for people with working able bodies between the ages of 18 and 35 to just live and exist on welfare. We have to make it harder for them to obtain it, harder for them to live on it, and we have to create more deterrence while they're on it, such as you can't buy junk food with it. These are all things that will push people off the program and will push people who are on the program into getting jobs, because this soon will be thrown off the program. You see, because as governor, I'm creating time restrictions, meaning that if you're able to get a job, then you better go get a job, because you only have 3 to 6 months per year or whatever restrictions that is agreed upon, and then you're cut off. There's no more career welfare recipients. You can pick it up for temporary assistance if needed, but that's what it is, temporary assistance. So when I'm attacking the homeless population in the metro area, I'm attacking the right to live off of welfare for free. I'm adding jobs. I'm increasing penalties and fines for loitering and other things. So when that's all said and done, you're now pushing those people, that population, out. Next, I'm going to send a no BS message to the people in the city of Portland. What I'm going to do is fire Ted Wheeler. He's failed as a mayor. He's failed as a police commissioner. He's allowed law enforcement to sit there and watch American citizens getting the crap kicked out of them, watched our rights be removed from us. He's done nothing to protect the citizens of this state. Instead, he enforces laws, dictates laws upon us that benefit undocumented. So at this point, Ted Wheeler must be replaced with a mayor or a police commissioner who will do their job, who will allow ICE in, who will allow the feds in to do their job. We need to replace this commissioner, this mayor, with somebody who will take law serious, who will take the oath serious, someone who will do their job. So that's the big issue. Now, next, we have to create legislation that would literally make Antifa a domestic terror group. Now, we've already heard from a federal level this is already happening. But what this means is, whenever you come to Portland, you decide to look the part, act the part, play the part. When you decide to get in a riot, create fires, injure people, American citizens, and riot instead of protest, no longer will you be considered, well, anything other than a terrorist. Which means that no longer are we just allowing our cities and our state police to enforce these laws. What we're now doing is I'm going to call upon the National Guard to come into the city. They will walk the streets of Portland, and they will impose law upon the citizens of Portland, and they will start arresting Antifa one by one, and they will start putting them in the domestic terror camps that they belong in. And it's time we take our city back. It's time we take back these streets of Portland. People ask all the time, how are we going to do it? Well, by force, by legislation, by law. So we have the means. We have the means to make it harder for them to camp. We have the means to make it harder for them to live off of welfare. We have the means to make it harder for them to get away with their criminal activities. We have the means to make our police force do their jobs. We have the means to hold our politicians, our commissioners, our mayors accountable for doing that job. We have a responsibility to the rest of the state to do so. That's why, in order to fix the city of Portland, these are measures that must be took. But it's not all about just inside the city of Portland. You have to work outside of the city too. You have to get people involved outside of the city. So you have to run a campaign talking about pro-jobs. You got to talk about creating tax incentives instead of more taxes. You got to talk about lowering taxes on everyday people, on the citizens of the state, specifically the citizens in rural Oregon. You got to start talking about ending the sanctuary status here in the state of Oregon. Period. You got to start ending ending the driver's license for illegals, the automatic voters registrations. You got to start ending that right now. You got to start talking about anti-corruption bills. Like I said before, holding politicians responsible, holding police responsible, holding anybody that takes an oath to do no harm against American citizens, to protect or serve, or to represent the American citizens, holding them accountable. Making sure that they're not robbing us blind, making sure that they're not robbing us of our wealth, our future, our rights, and such. So it's important that we pass this anti-corruption bill to hold them accountable. Next, reform. And I touched on this before, welfare reform. But it goes on to political reform, educational reform, tax reform, budget reform. The key word is going to be reform. Because what we need to do is we need to cut the useless spending, roll back the idiocy of throwing money at mindless fake agendas. Instead, we need to balance the budget. We need to create more jobs, create more tax incentives. We need to get our economy flowing and put our people back to work so that they're not living off of the socialistic welfare system. This is all about reform. Okay, and most of all, we need to work with our president to build that wall and secure our borders. Because for far too long, this state has done everything in their power to go backwards from our president's agenda. This state has done everything in their power to fight, to try to condemn legal immigration in this state. And we must work with our president. We must work with President Trump in order to truly make this state and this entire country great again. Period. We have to create rules for citizenship that make a requirement for citizenship for running for any state office, city council, school board, or anything of that sort, which means you have to be a citizen of this country to even consider running for a school board, to consider running for city council, to consider running for any political office, city, state, or federal. Period. We need to ban Sharia law from ever happening in Oregon. Too many places in this country where Christians are going to jail for handing out Bibles. Nowhere should an American citizen be arrested for handing out a Christian Bible. Period. Sharia zones must be absolute. We must make laws to prevent those from ever happening in Oregon. And then when that's all said and done and we're finally starting to build this state back up, I want to introduce more professional sports to this state. Sports are a great pastime. Sports are a great way to get people's minds off of the everyday problems, the everyday troubles that we face. It's a distraction. Portland, as well as much of Oregon, we're a huge fandom. We love our Blazers. We love our Ducks. We love our Beavers. We need more. We could utilize a professional hockey team, a professional baseball team, or God forbid, a professional football team. We could make a ton of money and revenue by any one of those professional teams. And if you look at the NBA, you know we have this fandom to back that up. So as governor, you would know that I will push to add another professional team to the city of Portland and the state of Oregon, whether it be football or baseball or hockey. Thank you. God bless. Get out there and vote. Get Kate Brown out, most of all. That's your number one priority, is get Kate Brown out. In order to redeem Oregon at all, you must get Kate Brown out of office. Period. Now, in order to make Oregon great, you must put somebody in office who was born in Oregon, raised in Oregon, and spent a lifetime fighting for Oregon. Now, let me fight for you. Thank you. God bless. Peace. Duncan,
That's
out.
gross.